Hello, and welcome to this training on interviewing fundamentals. Like your resume and your cover letter, an interview is another opportunity to tell your professional story. For many, interviews can be a major source of nerves and anxiety, especially if you don't feel as comfortable with speaking or have experience with a more formal process like an interview. Today, I'll share some tips to help you prepare for and ace your next interview. Hopefully, you already did some background research on the company when you submitted the job application initially. For the interview, begin to learn and deepen your understanding of the company. Begin with some preparatory research on the company to understand their reputation, ethos, and background. This includes reviewing their website content and recent social media posts to understand a little bit more about their work. It's also worth Googling beyond platforms they control to understand the company's reputation. If possible, try to speak with current or former employees. Ideally, this also happens before you apply through informational interviews where you can ask for more candid feedback on the employee's experience of the company and get their suggestions on how best to stand out in a job application for that company. Once you feel like you understand the organization better, it's time to prepare for the interview. To start, review the job description of the role you applied for. One pro tip is that when you submit your job application initially, copy and paste the job description into a Word or Google document, as sometimes organizations will pull the job descriptions off their website once the job application closes. You'll want to think through examples of your professional, personal, and academic experiences that align with the job requirements and expected job responsibilities. You'll also want to try and anticipate some questions you might be asked and prepare your answers accordingly. As you do this, it's best to take quick notes or bullet points. If you write out full answers and try and read them off or memorize them for the interview, you'll likely stumble over trying to remember the best phrasing or the specific way you wrote it. Instead, I recommend having a cheat sheet with notes to jog your memory and then allow you to speak like you're having a conversation with a teacher or a mentor. You want to be polite but conversational and a bit natural. It can be helpful to ask a friend to rehearse or record yourself answering some expected questions and listen back to see how you might improve. Finally, on timing, keep in mind that part of the effectiveness of your answers is not rambling. You need to give enough detail and supporting examples and evidence to back up your answers, but you need to avoid really endlessly long sentences and answers. We have a strategy to help you do that. And that strategy or common method is called the STAR method. And this can be used to help provide structure to your answers and keep them concise and clear. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and results. So you start with the situation. You start by providing a little bit of context on the example you're going to provide. You can explain the organization you worked for, the role you held, and most importantly, the situation or task you faced. Then you move to task. What were your specific responsibilities in this situation or example you're describing? What did you have to execute on or accomplish? Next is action. What are the actions you took to address the situation or execute on the task? And finally, explain the results. What did you achieve through your actions? This is an element that a lot of folks keep off of their answers. They might not end up finally getting to the results, and that's why it's so important to have this kind of clear structure in mind. If you use this kind of structure, it can help interviewers follow along with your answers. It also helps keep your answers short, and most importantly, allows you and the interviewer to focus on the most important details you're providing. So there are some common questions you can expect from interviews. And as we said at the top of this session, it's important to anticipate those questions and prepare your answers accordingly. So a few common questions that you can prepare for include, tell me about yourself. This is usually an opening question where you were asked to sort of introduce yourself and a little bit about your background. Here is a really important place where it's difficult to use the STAR method. And so instead, you just want to kind of have a go-to answer. What are some of the key highlights that you want to highlight about your experience, uh, top experiences, or requirements or responsibilities that you've held, but really just keep it very top line and also include a little bit of personal details. Other common questions include, why are you interested in this role? You should have some good language already from your cover letter that you can expand on. What are your biggest strengths? How did you hear about this role? That can include the platform that you heard about, or maybe an opportunity to mention a connection to a staff member that you have. And also, what's your working style? Another common question that is kind of dreaded is, what is one of your biggest weaknesses? Now, what your interviewer is really trying to do with this question, beyond identifying any major red flags, is to gauge your self-awareness, and honesty. Pick something you don't excel in, but you're working on improving, or something that can be a strength in some settings, but a weakness in other settings. I might say that I believe speaking up and influencing team decisions is something I value, and that I think I do well. But when taken too far, I might dominate conversations. So I'm working to intentionally create space for others to come in first before I contribute in team discussions. This is an example where I'm giving a genuine answer to something I'm working on that I can acknowledge has both positives and negatives. What you don't want to do here is provide an answer that is basically a strength. And a lot of people try and answer things by saying, I'm too passionate, or I'm an overachiever. Those are fairly insincere answers to this question. So it's important to try and be genuine and think of something that you are working on, but that you can still highlight has some benefits to it. So there are some other tricky questions that can come up, and we'll work through these one by one. The first is, what other jobs have you applied for? To answer this question, you don't need to give specifics, but you can mention maybe something that makes them similar to the role that you are interviewing for. For instance, maybe you're applying to other jobs in the same field or similar types of roles, say in fundraising or program management or technology. So I might respond to that question by saying that I'm generally looking for roles like this one, where I can find an entry-level position in a mission-driven organization that's focused on improving educational equity. Here I've mentioned the nature of the role, similar fields, but I'm not telling them the specific jobs I've applied to or the other companies I've applied to. That's not necessary, and you shouldn't feel pressured to do that. Another common question is, why are you leaving your current job? Here you want to be diplomatic. Try to find a way to focus on your personal growth, evolution, and experience, rather than be negative about the past and your experience at your job. If there are one or two major dynamics about your current job that are influencing your decision to leave, and that you think are important for you to find in a new workplace, you can mention those as well, because it can be a good way to gauge whether or not the organization you're applying to will meet that criteria. So I might say, I'm finding myself at a point where I'm not learning as much as I feel I should be in this role, and my manager hasn't responded well to my feedback requesting more professional development opportunities. So I think this is the right time to seek opportunities that will allow me to learn and grow more externally. Here, I've acknowledged again a sincere challenge that I'm facing, and it's a way to show them, this new potential employer, the things that I'm looking for that I hope they will make it a commitment and investment in. Another common question that's very tricky is, what are your salary requirements? If you're asked this, it will likely be during an initial phone screening call with a representative from Human Resources. It's recommended that you avoid stating a specific salary figure for as long as possible. If you're asked, you can initially just emphasize that salary is just one consideration for you, in addition to mission, good fit, additional benefits, etc. If they push and really insist on a specific answer, you can ask them if they can share a salary range for the role. It's worth noting that many organizations now include salary ranges in the job posting to help with this. If they do provide you a salary range, you can confirm if your expectations are within or beyond that salary range without stating a specific figure, and that should satisfy them enough. Basically, they just want to know that if they invest time in interviewing you, salary isn't going to be an automatic deal breaker. In the worst case, where they're not willing to provide a salary range and insist that you provide a specific figure, you can provide a general figure, but reiterate that you'd prefer to discuss this further when an offer is made in the future. Finally, one tricky question is, what do you think our company could do better? This is more common to come from smaller, maybe more startup style organizations, which are curious to see what new ideas you'll bring to the table. Be humble in answering this and acknowledge that as an outsider of the organization, you won't be aware of some of the constraints and dynamics they operate within. But still come ready with one or two ideas of something that they might start doing, stop doing, or do in a different way. Okay, so we talked about some potential questions to prepare for. Now let's just talk about the different stages before, during, and after an interview of how to prepare best. First is to make sure that you've confirmed who you'll meet and the format. Ask your point of contact to confirm the names and titles of those that you'll be speaking with during your interview. With that information, you can do some background research on who you're meeting with and any mutual connection points you have. You can also confirm the interview format. Will it be a case study interview? Will you have to do a writing or skills assessment? Or will it be a more standard behavioral interview? This is also the right moment to confirm if the interview will be in person, virtual, or a hybrid modality. If you're doing research on others, then they could do the same to you. Make sure that you've cleaned up your social media and online presence so that there's nothing unprofessional online. Many people choose to keep their social media accounts private when applying for jobs. The day before the interview, follow up with your point of contact to reconfirm your appointment, including the location and address or call-in details if it's virtual. Make sure to prepare your notes. One important pro tip, write down the names of your interviewers at the top of the page for reference in case you don't remember them in the moment. Try to get some good sleep the 2 nights before your interview. It's not just about the night before, but really banking some good sleep. And finally, you want to make sure that you get your outfit ready. Quickly, a few points on online interviews. Online interviews are increasingly common, so there are a few specific ways you can prepare for those. The first is to make sure that you have received the necessary call information from the company and that you've confirmed which platform you're going to use. You want to make sure to do a test run to make sure you have the proper technology or platforms downloaded and with the most updated versions on your computer. No one wants the surprise update signal right before an interview starts. Before the interview, be sure that you tidy up in the space behind you so that you look presentable on screen, or use a virtual or blurred background. Most virtual platforms allow you to check your sound and video quality as well, so you can do that beforehand. There are also elements that might not be in your control, like the stability of your Wi-Fi connection. You could offer to be proactive on that by asking in advance if there's a number you could call in the event the virtual call drops for some reason. The interviewer could also have connectivity issues, for instance. This shows that you are thinking ahead and problem solving. Let's talk briefly about what to wear, as this can be a source of anxiety for folks as they interview. General professional attire is recommended for the interview unless the company specifies otherwise. What's recommended is a suit jacket and pants, but if that's not available to you, a button-down shirt and tie, a nice blouse, a professional dress with appropriate hemlines, or slacks or suit pants are appropriate. There are also significant cultural differences in professional dress. So if you have something specific to your culture that signifies formality and respect for the person you're meeting with, feel free to wear that. In general, it's recommended to wear clean and crisp clothes, and while a pop of color can be nice and show your personality, many recommend a generally muted or more neutral palette. While all of these are recommended norms, you can also try and gauge the office environment and match that. And ultimately, you want to make sure you can be yourself. In the end, when in doubt, it's better to overdress and skew more formal than less formal for the purposes of an interview. Putting a tie on an outfit like this does not make it professional. Okay, so let's talk about what you can do on the day of your interview. There's some key steps to help you succeed. First is to be early, but not too early. To be early, recommend 10 minutes early as appropriate. Try not to be more than 15 minutes early because then you might stress folks out and feel like they are having to rush to accommodate you. Worst case, if you're that early, do a lap outside of the office until it's an appropriate time to come in. If you're doing a virtual interview, it's fair to log on 3 to 5 minutes early, especially to be sure that the software you're using doesn't need to update and that all the technology is working well. For in-person interviews, prepare for the worst case situations. If you spill something on your clothes, try to bring a stain remover in your pocket or your bag. If you worry about bad breath, bring a mint with you to have beforehand. If you're wearing uncomfortable shoes that might give you blisters, bring band-aids to help you, or try and find more comfortable shoes. Try to anticipate these challenges and prepare for them as much as possible. If you're in person, I recommend bringing a few printed copies of your latest CV, your resume, as well as a notebook and pen. You can bring notes to briefly consult, including a list of questions you prepared to ask them during the interview. Almost every interviewer will allow you time at the end to ask for questions. So come prepared with at least a couple of those, as the thoughtfulness of your questions can help impress interviewers. Be mindful of the time when it's time to ask questions. And if you're running over schedule, ask if it would be better to follow up in writing with any additional questions that you have. Before you depart, confirm the timeline with them to make sure that you understand what the next steps look like and the decision making. Make note of those timelines as it will help you follow up in an appropriate way. And finally, it's important to try and do something to relax before the interview. For me, in the minutes leading up to the interview, I have to dance to a song to get some of my excess energy out. Exercising the night before also helps me and it helps me sleep. So find the thing that helps ground you. Is it doing a quick meditation? Is it listening to a good song? Is it talking to a dear friend? Whatever you need, try and find that strategy to help you relax a little bit more. So there are a few things that you can do after an interview that will be really important. You may breathe a sigh of relief, but there's just a few important follow-up steps. Within 24 hours of your interview, send a thank you note by email. You should reference the folks that you interviewed by name, and you can reference any specific points from the interview that you want to reiterate or emphasize, or thank them, for sharing something with you. If you don't have their emails, reach out to your focal point or your point of contact. Most likely that will be someone in human resources to ask if either they could share the emails of the folks you met with or forward along your message to them. Based on the timeline they share in the interview, you can follow up after that period if you have not heard from them. So if you've been told they'll notify you of next steps by the end of next week, only follow up with them after that deadline has passed with any additional emails. But the thank you note, send within 24 hours. Finally, I just want to talk briefly about what might happen if you don't get the job. Job markets are very competitive, and so we have to be prepared for potential rejection. And there is a good way to do this. While it may be disappointing, you can still use it as an opportunity to build your reputation. First, you should reply to the notification that you did not receive the job with as positive a tone as possible. You can acknowledge that while you're disappointed by the outcome of this particular opportunity, you hope to remain connected. And if future opportunities arise that might be a good fit, you'd appreciate them keeping you in mind. You may ask for feedback on anything you might improve in future interviews. Some organizations have a policy of not providing written feedback because it opens them to certain risks, but others will provide it, so it's always worth trying to ask. Some companies will maintain candidate profiles in a talent pool for future opportunities, so you can also confirm with them if they'll keep your information on file. Finally, if you remain genuinely interested in working with this company in the future, consider how you can stay connected with them, whether that's by connecting with the folks you interviewed with on LinkedIn or signing up for the company's newsletters or following their social media. All of this can help you handle rejection in a mature and productive way. Hopefully, all the information we've provided here today helps give you more confidence as you continue in your job search process. Good luck.